Let's do some practice problems, discuss some pitfalls, and something from your homework. Your online homework pisses me off. I got to vent and show you something that it accepts that I will not on your next exam. But before we do, hey, there's that little derivative thing. And I'm going to kind of just break it down as to how I look at it. Cool? Cool. Let's take a look at this problem we have here. Where we say y is equal to the function x to the fourth times the function e to the x. Cool. Cool. Now, mechanically, this is how I like to solve them. So I'm going to color code it for you and make that one blue. Let's make that one purple. Cool. Now, the way this works, if you have an f, now I'm gonna write like real shorthand here, f times g, and you want to differentiate this thing. I'm gonna kind of clean this up for you just a bit. I'm gonna write it just a tad differently. So I'm gonna say let's take a derivative on the first, and you leave g alone. Now you're gonna add it. Sorry about that. Now you're gonna add it to. Now, since we took a derivative of the first, we're just gonna leave that shit alone. No derivative. And I multiply by the derivative of the second. It's going to be our gain. So, I'm going to write it out once super proper. And then I'm going to show you kind of more of the shortcuts through. So, I'm going to say that y prime is equal to. So, according to this, it says let's take the derivative on x to the fourth. And then we're going to leave e to the x alone. Next, we're going to add it to, let's just leave that x to the fourth alone, but now we're going to have to multiply it by the derivative of e to the x. So on one of them, you hit it with a derivative, you leave the other one alone. And then you switch it on the next. Therefore, y prime is going to equal, clean it all up. Just clean it up. So what are we gonna get right inside of here for the derivative of x to the fourth? X to the fourth, we're gonna get 4x cubed, and now we leave the e to the x alone. Cool. Now we got to take a derivative. This one's gonna be rough. We got to take a derivative on e to the x right inside of here. So what's that gonna be? It's gonna be e to the x. Dope. There's the derivative. If you don't have a plus sign or a minus sign or something due to sign, some of the signs change. And you're doing a product, you did it wrong. And it's strange. This is actually one of the most common mistakes, and I can't quite figure out why. Now, this isn't simplified. And this is where your web assigned homework pisses me off to no end. It doesn't require that you actually simplify your answer, because this is what we call a super freaking lazy answer. We can factor this stuff up and clean it. Because typically we're going to take this later, we're going to set it equal to 0 and solve, and you want shit factored. Also, those e to the x's, get the heck out of here. Get out of here with that. Maybe factor the e to the x out to the front, and you got these x cubes and x to the, you at least yank out an x cubed. Now what's left over inside of here? What's going to be left? You're going to be left with a 4 plus x. That's it. There's your y prime. Cleaned up and factored so you can see if you plugged in x is equal to -4 or 0. Whatever. I digress. Here's another way. Real quick way of doing these things. You do this. F, and then I write G. And right underneath it, I write F prime, and then I put in G prime. But I'm not actually going to write F and G, I'm just going to write with the other. So our F was x to the fourth. Our F prime was 4x cubed. Our G of x was e to the x. And its derivative was e to the x. So that's what I mean. These are the same things I'm trying to write. F over G and F prime over F prime and G over G prime. It's the same thing, writing my F prime, my G prime. Because all we need to do to figure out what the answer is going to be is just make yourselves a little, let's make a cross. Do this. So you end up with x to the fourth times e to the x to the fourth times e to the x. And then you end up with 4x cubed times e to the x, 4x cubed times e to the x. So you can write them down super quick and be like, oh, shit, F prime. Or shit, not F prime. Y prime, or dy dx. You look at it and be like, 4x cubed times e to the x. 4x cubed, e to the x plus x to the 4th times e to the x. And we get to that place without actually having to write all the derivatives in. So that's a game. Take it or leave it. I'll probably show it again. Now look at this problem. And this whole section is just rife with teaching you horrible habits. I look at this. This is not a freaking product. This is not a product. You do algebra first, and then you do the power rule. But we're learning, because there's also going to be something called a chain later, where when we get there, if we put a cubed and like a to the 4th, shit gets a little bit more complicated, and then this actually becomes a better method. But for now, shoot, there's no way in hell. There's no way, I don't, like, yeah, cool story, it's a freaking product. No. I would do algebra. So I'm going to do the algebra first and just show you that this h to the x, what is that, 3x cubed plus 2x squared, and then we got, what are we going to get, minus 3x, and then we're going to get minus 2. I would do this. You know what I mean? And now h prime of x is equal to, what's that, 9x squared plus 4x minus 3. Now we use algebra. It's just stupid to use a derivative. But we're learning the point. So on an exam, I'm not going to ask you to do the frickin' product rule. I'm just going to tell you to do the derivative. And I promise you, I'm going to make your life hell if you don't do the algebra first. I purposely try and make certain that you do this. But for the nature of our game that we're playing here, we can call this f and g. F and g. So the way this is going to work is we write down h prime of x is equal to, now I'm going to take a derivative of the first and I'm going to leave it alone. So x squared minus 1, what's its derivative? 2x. And now we leave the back end alone, that 3x plus 2. Huh? Now we're going to add it to, now we took a derivative on this one first, so we're going to leave this one alone. We're just going to write in x squared minus 1. And then we're going to take a derivative on that g, on this one that's here, that 3x plus 2. And now what's the slope of the line, 3x plus 2? What's the derivative of 3x plus 2? It's just 3. Cool. Well, there's the calculus way of finding the same derivative, but now we have to do algebra. So the game ends up being, a lot of times students feel like, well, I can just do the derivative. But you have to clean it up at the end. The cleanup is typically easier to do at the beginning with algebra. Doing the algebra at the end of calculus typically sucks. So, there's my spiel. So now let's do this. Let's bring all that stuff through. This one actually doesn't, I don't think it really makes much difference. We get 2x times 3x, that's 6x squared, plus 4x, and now we get, what's this, plus 3x squared minus 3, so we clean it up, so we get 6 plus 3 is 9 of them, and then we get plus 4x minus 3. Hey y'all, stuff matches. You know what I mean? So if you can do algebra, do algebra. But if not, I mean, you're learning. There's a point here. Got it. Now I'm really going to get all fired up and show you a problem. Now, this is what your WebAssign would say an answer would be acceptable. Right here. Same problem. It took it right out of your homework. So I'm going to give you the solution because this makes me so effing cranky that there's a check mark down here saying that this is correct. This is such sloppy nonsense. It's just bullshit. This is not simplified at all. Because the answer is 2u minus 1. That's the answer to this. And WebAssign will accept that. So I'll give you stuff like this on the written portion of your next exam. You can't leave me stuff like that. WebAssign's getting you into a horrible habit of letting you not simplify things. We need things simplified. Because, dude, what happens when you need to take this thing and set it equal to 0 and solve for u? You're going to look at that mess and go, what do I do? Now, for mine, yeah, u equals a half. That's why I want you to simplify. There's a reason. I'm not trying to just make you do shit just to make you do shit, but just to know. I look at this problem and go, dude, this is a freaking difference of squares. Bring it through. You could FOIL it, or you could recognize that this is a minus b times a plus b. So h of u, before even starting, it's u squared minus what's the square root of u squared? Oh yeah, that's just u. Now let's take a derivative. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So algebra first, power rule is our buddy. But if we were to just do this, and we write, all right, derivative of the first. Now I'm just going to run through this. 1 plus 1 over 2 square roots of u. That's the derivative of this. And now that means we're going to leave this one alone. Now we're going to add it to, let's leave the first one alone, and now we're going to multiply by the derivative of the second. Now it's going to be the same thing as this one, right? The only difference is there's a minus sign in there. I'll let you check my work on that one. And this is the answer that would have accepted. Anything like, oops, I got my signs backwards. I got my signs backwards on this one, because that's a negative, and that one's a positive. Some of y'all probably screaming, like, what the hell? What are you doing? Signs are backwards. And it leaves it like this, but that's we saw it's 2u minus 1. I'm just going to save the time. If you go through and do all the frickin' algebra, it ends up becoming 2u minus 1 afterwards. But look at how terrible this algebra would have been at the end to have to do. And I'm not going to make you go through and watch me do it. You just know that's probably a pain in the ass. So there it is. Sorry for such a long one. I tried to make this one quick. I'll come back with a couple more sample problems next.